Rao, Sunil here. Thank you for the wonderful speech, sir. We only heard about AD and BC. I saw something called CE. Can you throw some light on it? Because I'm hearing it for the first time in this WhatsApp world.
So AD is Anno Domino and BC is before Christ, other such things. So I find these false indicators unless I want to subscribe to the notion there was a person called Christ who marks that. So in deference to this, we call it a common era and before common era. Common era is CE, is the same as AD, and BCE is before common era, same as today's BC. Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
small question about from Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna said, Chaturvarna Vyavastha Maya Srishtam. So can you small throw some light on that? Exactly what exactly God we are claiming to be? Actually, He Himself is an incarnation, and we are claiming that Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, they were not mythological, but it is a history.
Okay, so I didn't understand the question very well, but I get the central sentiment that you are saying that these are not mythological. I detest the word mythology. Mythology is a word that mythology is a word that perhaps talks about our ignorance of the reality behind these things. So is there any evidence behind the timelines of the Mahabharata and Ramayana? Is the next question. So internally there is a lot of data that can be used towards compiling timelines. The important issue for scholars is, are these consistent timelines? For example, if I take dates out of Ramayana that talk about one date for birth of Rama, then some other astronomy that talks about Sita Kalyanam, then I take some other astronomy for Hanuman leaping to Lanka and looking at the constellations on his path. And if I say that 2000 years happened between Hanuman's jumping and something else, these are inconsistent timelines. So the question is, are there consistent timelines? And we find difficulty. We find difficulty in trying to put together a consistent timeline that can rationally accommodate the maximal set of evidence. If you remember, we have a lot of evidence in Itihasas. We have evidence on geology, astronomy, on climate change, on seasons, and so on. So our challenge is to try and find one consistent narration for these. To add to that, we also have the Yuga model. So the Yuga model in the Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about the Treta Yuga, the Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga, and Satya Yuga, and so on. And it talks about when the Itihasas happen in certain Yuga time frames. So if we accept the number of years given in Srimad Bhagavatam as the correct Yuga time frame, then we have to go to several millions of years to make some of these things happen. So there are challenges. The bottom line is there is a lot of evidence. The question is to come up with a consistent set of evidence that makes sense to us. I believe that task is not accomplished by anybody as of date. So people are putting forward their best theories. So these remain best theories at this time, to my knowledge. Yes.
Hello, this is regarding Al-Biruni's India or Indica. The English translation is available on the web, online, Columbia University. I remember referring to...
Did you say Al-Biruni or Megasthenes?
Al-Biruni.
Al-Biruni, okay.
I remember referring to it many, many times, and somewhere halfway through it, on the very first page of a chapter, he says, while referring to the game of chess, he says that Greeks claim that they have invented this, but that's not true. Indians have done it, and the chariot that it was used in Egypt also shows that the Hindus were first to use the chariots, horse chariots. So he says that Hindus ruled Egypt. What is your reflection on this?
Okay. So very quickly, game pieces have been found in Harappa. In Harappa, you got game pieces as well as game boards and other such things. There is some controversy on whether they are little Shivalingas or whether they are game pieces. Such controversies are there. Game pieces have also been found in Kiradi, for example, very, very similar game pieces. So we know games were used in India for a very long time. And even if we look at the internal evidence of Mahabharata, we know everything was built around a game of dice, right? The game of dice, Shakuni, is what led to all these things. So if you date the Mahabharata to various time frames, you get an idea of the antiquity of the game pieces itself. Next is about Egypt and the Indian rulers over there. So we know that Egypt had contact with India in various forms. So in my talk on antiquity of Indian medical systems, I'm talking about how Indian drugs was in use in Egypt. So an author called J.F. Royle, R-O-Y-L-E, he points out that many drugs that were in India, the herbal things, were used in Egypt for their own medical systems. I'm also showing in my talk how these things suddenly came around 1800 BCE, 1700 BC, the so-called Kahun papyrus, Eber's papyrus. None of these things go to the Old Kingdom. None of them go to the Middle Kingdom. This is a late kingdom. So the issue is that even in Egypt, it turns out that they were introduced to ideas that the migrants from India took. Where were these migrants? Remember the 200-year drought that I said in 4,000 years ago? That is one. Second is the drying up of the Saraswati in 1900 BCE. Both of these things, in my belief, were catastrophic events in the Indian civilization, which led to outward migration of people as well as spreading of Indian knowledge systems in these places. So if we see Indian medical knowledge in Egypt, one reason is because of these kind of transmissions. So the second thing. Third is Egypt seems to have had contact with, I already talked about Imenhotep and Tushratta, how Tushratta is referring to the Vedic gods in a peace treaties of the Egyptian pharaohs. Additionally, when Imenhotep II fell ill, Tushratta sent to him a healing statue of Shauka. Shauka is Durga on a lion. Even today we pray to Durga on a lion to heal us of diseases and things like that. This was a cultural practice going back to the time of Tushratta, who was a Mitanni king. He sent it to the Egyptian pharaoh when he fell ill. We know that also. Third data point we have is the Hyksos people, Hyksos people. These Hyksos people are supposed to be an unknown in the Egyptian king list. They came out of somewhere, nowhere at all. They had the Nubians and other black pharaohs and other such things. The Hyksos are fair-skinned people. They came suddenly in around 1800 BCE and so on, and took over and were ruling in that part of the world. So once again, the question comes whether the Kshatriyas of India who landed up over there and were ruling over there. These are speculations, I know, but the evidence seems to point to various aspects that they got knowledge of Indian medical systems. These people are migrating out of India to the Fertile Crescent, the Nile Valley, and so on. Everything seems to be adding up. So I hope that addresses your question. Yeah. So it's interesting. One should look for it. Al-Biruni's writing certainly helps us to understand some of these things, but whether these writings directly will be found in the Islamic countries, I'm not very certain. I'll be glad if it is found in places there. They seem to be finding archaeological finds there, but not the written forms because of their aversion towards anything pre-Islamic, especially if it doesn't talk about Allah and others. They would burn these libraries and other such things. So you find archaeological artifacts. You don't find many of the written record.
Vedamji, do you agree with the contention or allegation that there was absence of focus on martial aspects in our civilization, and that is the reason why we have been at the receiving end of the machinations of the hostile forces?
I'm not very sure that would be a correct assertion. Many people have thought about this for long. How is it that a country that had a tradition of division of society into certain categories, how could we have allowed such a thing to happen to us in the Islamist rule and so on? However, just like Chaudhry Garu also mentioned earlier, after Bin Qasim, 400 years, the Islamists were thwarted by the Rajputs and others. They were fighting them and keeping them at bay. It is only after Ghazni and Ghori managed to come into India, first the destruction of the Jyotirlinga temple in Haryana, Kurukshetra, second one in Somnath and other places. This is what caused a tremendous distress in the Indian psyche. What happened after that, we can speculate. There are many reasons that could have caused these reasons. to happen. For example, in southern India, I like to see what happened to the Cholas. Cholas were the most powerful people out there in southern India. They were ruling all over Cambodia and other places. That navy is going there. And that was the time Ghazni came into India. However, the Cholas were completely nowhere when Alauddin Khilji and the eunuch General Malik Kafur came all the way to Dwarasamudram and destroyed the Hoysalas and destroyed everybody and came up to Madurai. So what happened? So I question a lot myself to try and understand these aspects of history. Was India weakened by internecine warfare? That is what some of the Marxists are telling us, that warfare between them caused this. I don't know the reasons. I'm still trying to understand for myself. Some people say the fast Arabian horse, but then we also had horses over here. We know in Vijayanagar kingdom they were importing horses. The Portuguese were helping them to import horses and such things. So we don't know what caused the balance of power from one to the other. There are some lessons we learned from history. One of them is a war elephant. We know the tide of war changed at least in 2-3 crucial things because the war elephant was attacked by the Islamists and others because they knew that's the weakest point. If you can make the elephant turn around, maybe kill the king, everybody's demoralized. And we know that happened. Suppose the key battles, we know that happened. So I struggle a lot with that episode of Indian history myself. But I do not agree that we did not have the proper defenses and so on and so forth to make it happen.
I think we'll take the last question. I think we are running out of time. Sorry for that. I think this will be the last question. Thank you.
Namaste, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about all the scriptures that were there. How to bring Panchatantra of Vishnu Sharma up to the first 10 years of school education in India? Because if that happens, Tukdegam won't happen in India. I mean, that's my hypothesis, but is it possible to have Panchatantra in a school syllabus in India?
I would love not only Panchatantra, but a whole lot of other things also to be there. I remember that when I was a schoolboy, we had a lot of nice Puranic content in my Kannada textbooks. I studied in Kannada in Karnataka. We had stories like Punyakoti, we had all these kind of things.
Puranas, nobody will accept now. The given conditions, people will resist us. But
Unfortunately,
Panchatantra can be done.
iteration after iteration, the Marxists have gone and removed content out and put toxic content. Toxic content did not come overnight. Every 3-4 years, textbooks undergo revision. Every 3-4 years, they've taken out more and put more and more toxic content. That's what has happened. So we have seen an accumulation of content. It's like cancer. It does not grow overnight, but eventually one fine day you wake up and find that, oh my God, everything's diseased over here.
But Dr. Chaudhary said one thing, if you control the present, you will control the past.
Very true.
We have the control now. Can we do something?
I would love for it to happen.
Well, he
I'd love
doesn't
for
represent
that
the government anyway.
We are on the same page
Thank
over
you.
there.
May I add one question, sir? Okay. Yeah, just one question. Yeah, I just add one question. See, I think the current narrative that we see is the written alphabet existed only from and around the Magad Empire. You know, prior to that, there is no written word unless we decipher the the Indus script, right? So we did not have archaeological evidence of Talapatras or something like that, which predates that in a written form. We had Smriti and Shruti and all that stuff. So, but then how do we place this? With 7,000, 8,000 BC, some evidence versus 300 BC when you have the written word.
Yeah. So in my talk on Aryan Dravidian divide that I gave in this talk tour, I talked about the non-Harappa sources for writing in the Indian context. I gave about 20 is too much, about 10 to 15 data points on writing. One of them is Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya says that in India, writing was done on cotton cloth. Cotton cloth was not durable material, but he talks about writing. He says writing was done over there. Panini is talking about Lipi. And there are a whole lot of other authors. Max Muller says that Chanda's period is when writing came into India, and so on. In Bet Dwaraka, Professor S.R. Rao, archaeologist, he found what he calls a transitive Indus script, a transition from the Harappa script into Brahmi. He finds that. We know Brahmi is the source of all the Indian scripts to the present time. But when did Brahmi come about? People are pointing to the Mauryan kingdom and saying Ashoka pillar and other such things. However, it comes in a fully developed form over there. So S.R. Rao found in 1500 BCE, 1500 BC is the date he gave to that artifact, a pottery shard that shows a transitive script. And if you go to Yajnavalkya and I showed Yajnavalkya's time frame in Shatapada Brahmanas 2982 BC. He's saying writing happened on cotton cloth and so on. So I do not believe that writing came recently to India. I believe writing was very ancient. We don't have archaeological evidence other than pottery shards at this time.
Thank you, sir.
First of all, I want to congratulate Dr. Vedam. His knowledge is phenomenal, panoramic. Now, I want to respond to one question, or rather make an observation. You know, the Greeks came to conquer. Alexander wanted to conquer India. He was the world conqueror he was. But he had to beat a retreat. Does it not speak of the valor of India? Dr. Ambedkar, as well as Savarkar, have written that Buddhism has enfeebled India. Buddhism has enfeebled, and Ashoka can be said to be the greatest culprit in this regard. He made Buddhism as the official religion of the state, and Ahimsa was taken to the absurd limits. So we became enfeebled, and his great grandson, Brihadratha, was keeping quiet when the Greeks came back again. It was given to Orissa's Kharavela. Kharavela from Orissa had chased the Greeks up to Ayodhya and then re-established the freedom of India. This happened many a time. Now the lesson that Ambedkar and Sardar Patel have taken from the history of India is, India was invaded a number of times because we did not have a central government, a strong central government. Samudragupta had conquered the whole of India. That was in the 5th century, 6th century or so. And when we were writing the constitution, these two people, that is Sardar Patel and Dr. Ambedkar, said we must have a strong center, very strong center. It is not a federation. It is a union which is indissoluble. Articles 352, 356 and 360, they override every state. 352 when the external invasion is there. 356 when the constitution breaks down in the state. In the Article 360, it says if there is a financial mismanagement, the finances will be taken over by the central government. So it is this strong central government which did not exist, and when it existed, nobody dared to come to India. That's how our constitution, the historic lessons that are learned from by Dr. Ambedkar and Sardar Patel are reflected in our constitution. So I congratulate you, and don't think why all civilizations disappeared. Why is it that every country that was conquered by Islam within 50 years, na bhasha, na bhosha, na vesha, na haraha, whereas here in this country, instead of 800 years of struggle, even the so-called untouchables were not converted. Does it not speak of the great spirituality that is there in our India? And it is that spirituality which has prevailed over the militias. So this is what we have to. And somebody asked about Panchatantra. I was thinking, I was SSLC, I passed it in 1946. Panchatantra was there. Even when the British were there, Mahabharata stories were there, Panchatantra stories were there, Bhattacharya Subhashita was taught to us, Vemana was taught to us. It is only in the last 70 years in the name of this bogus secularism that everything that is great has been excluded from our education. It is Buddhi leni Vidya, Niti leni Vidya, Deenivalla, and the teachers are now wage earners, whereas my teachers were gurus. They were Shilpis, sculptors. They take a stone and make a Buddha out of him. Whereas that is the Ram people which are entrusted to, even during the British times, our teachers were great. But it is now they are wage earners. That's why this country has deteriorated.
I would now request Chandrasekhar ji to come and propose a vote of thanks. He'll announce it. Before that, I would also request all of you to kindly subscribe for our magazine Bharatiya Prajna, so that such kind of a content can reach all of you, and you will be part of our database. And Chandrasekhar ji, after he proposes the vote of thanks, we'll all stand for the national anthem, and we conclude after that. Thank you.
Andariki Namaskaram. A very good evening to each and every one of you. I have some information regarding the program which is going to be held on the 23rd January 2020. This is in relation to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Jayanti celebrations, which is being organized by Jan Urja Manch. It's going to be held at Ravindra Bharati, like I said, on the 23rd of January. 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. That's time for high tea, and 5:30 to 7:30 the actual program will be there. So I actually request all of you to present, and I quickly go through. The chief guest is going to be Sri Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, Minister of Jal Shakti Mantralaya, Government of India, and guest of honors G. Kishan Reddy, Minister of Home Affairs, and guest of honor Sri Srinivas Gaud, and also Colonel Tejendra Pal Tyagi, and Padma Shri Srimati Meenakshi Amma also going to be the guest of honor. So 23rd January, please mark your diaries and please attend. And it's my privilege this evening to present the vote of thanks on this occasion this evening. I would like to start with Dr. Raj Vedam. If I say that was a wonderful presentation, that would actually be undermining. Sir, I can see you have a lot of work. You actually enriched us this evening from your work through your presentation. The material is, I'm sure, definitely more than enough for at least 3 to 4 days workshop, if not more. We would love to have you again on our dais once again when time permits. Thank you so much, sir. And now I would like to thank the audience. Today being a Sunday, many people mark it as a family time, but still you could make it. You're all here. Very glad to see this. Without you, this evening's program would not have been a success. Thank you so much, audience. And Macester Auditorium, I would like to mention them for letting us use this auditorium and with their so much of cooperation. And print and electronic media for publishing and broadcasting this evening's facts through their channels. And also a special thanks to Mr. Neeraj Singh Thakur in his individual capacity and also in his organizational capacity, which is EXP MICE, for partnering with us this evening's program. And Shiv Prasad and his media team for their photography and videography arrangements. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Pragna Bharati team members, all the team members, Hyderabad and Karimnagar and all the other unit members for sparing time, making effort to pass the information about this evening's program. That's the reason why we have decent audience. Thank you so much. Thank you one and all. And now we are going to have our national anthem. I request all of you to please stand up. And after finishing the national anthem, I request Pragna Bharati team members to please come on to the dais for a group photograph. Now we'll have the national anthem.
మీకు రావాలనుకుంటే సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకోండి. అలాగే పక్కనున్న బెల్ ఐకాన్ ను క్లిక్ చేస్తే ఆల్, పర్సనలైజ్డ్, నన్ అనే ఆప్షన్స్ వస్తాయి. అందులో ఆల్ అనే ఆప్షన్ పై క్లిక్ చేయండి.